going on, everybody? Thank you for joining us today on the Huddle, your weekly playbook for all that jazz that Mr. Paul likes to say. But we're just here
We
to
were
help
just
people
discussing how we have to actually sit down and like write something
write it
down
down,
where when Paul's not here, someone's got to do it.
right? Because if I repeat what Paul says, I'm just pretty much making fun of him, to be honest with you. But uh, it, we're just here to try to help people find success. We don't like failure, trying to lead people in the right direction the best we can by sharing our failures and our successes. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about issues as far as uh, dealing with difficult materials, tips for installing and challenge, or for installing challenging flooring types. But before we get started, we should probably give a shout out to Divergent Adhesives. Uh,
And
they
if you haven't seen that video that he put of that AI thing where the Divergent is doing that dance that they have all the babies do, you got to get go over to the Sunny's Facebook page and check that out.
and if you haven't had the luxury of using any of their adhesives, I do advise to give them a try. Um,
Yeah, they're awesome. When we were doing the last certification, the installers there were like, "What is this adhesive? Because I want to use this all the time."
every day is an everyday thing, and not to mention a flooring nerd putting a lot of love into his product.
So thanks, Divergent, for sponsoring this episode.
We always appreciate it. So we'll chit chat for a second, give it a minute to get a little bit of traction, um, kind of get a list together of items to talk about since our typical moderator, Mr. Paul, is not here, and we just realized how much we lean on that guy to get his list of questions down to get started.
Yeah, he is really good at making sure one we stay focused, and number two, just that we have stuff to actually talk about.
Yeah. Um, well, I guess we'll start with a easy question about is everybody pretty much ready for ties? Whoever's going, it's not what less than a week away.
Yeah,
Um,
I
we'll be
mean,
heading out.
technically, a week away is when the show actually starts, right?
Yeah, yeah. Not
But you
not
have
arrival time.
the education, and we will be going live on Monday with women in the flooring industry, um, kind of moderating that panel. I don't know how much we're actually gonna talk and stuff. I mean, it's not about us that day. We're just trying to get the word out for them. But
Yeah,
we definitely need you guys to chime in and ask them the questions that you want to ask.
yeah. We just had a meeting with panelists the other day, and I think it's going to be a pretty exciting thing. I think it's an opportunity for everybody to kind of give their 2 cents in the subject matter, and to help others who might need a little bit of guidance.
And then also big trade tap thing that's going to be, I'm pretty sure, like Paul's not here to say, but that's what we were talking about, right? Like as soon as we get on that show floor, things should be live and everyone should be able to be to sign up if you're not on Go Career already. Um, it's going to be a good opportunity to come find us, get signed up for Trade Tap, and see exactly where you're at on this great scale that he's got.
Yeah, and I think we're coming in a little bit early this weekend coming up. So if you guys are around early and have our
We
information, give us a call, shoot us a text.
Yep, we'll be there on Sunday. I think we get there around 2 or 3 o'clock.
Yeah, yeah, right around then.
So if you wanna take us to dinner, let us know. We're all about that. Din Tai Fung at the Aria is where you can take us.
That place is delicious.
And then also Live Switch. When Paul used this, he said that his estimate was within a few $100s of what AI said it was supposed to be.
You know, besides me navigating that website, I think that we also need to jump on there and get. Well, Paul said he was going to do
A
is it
demonstration,
a
right?
demonstration. Yeah, so we'll wait for Paul to do that. But you guys should navigate that website. It's one of those items that is definitely a game changer. Man, it's going to change so much, along with everything else
Well,
that's evolving.
AI is changing the game on everything, and in we have a Monday morning meeting every week, and talking to the guys, and that's what we told them. It's like if you are dealing with these tricky materials, it's not a bad idea to take a picture, take some video, ask AI, and see what it says. Jorge is going to be there next week.
What's up, Jorge? How you doing, brother?
I think he's
Well,
doing demonstrations at the CFI booth with some tricky materials.
yeah, that guy's always busy down there, man. Oh, I get it. I get it. We are too, just in different ways.
Yeah, we're not just in one place. We're everywhere trying to do everything. At least he's centrally located, right? I got a demonstration here at this time.
We'll
And
be walking around
Carlos.
taking video.
So if you guys want some good Mexican food, Javier's at the Aria is really good too. So we can go do that. I go to Vegas to get fat, guys.
Daniel doesn't have a hard time dealing with difficult places to eat down there. He's uh he's made a list. He's checking these places off. So if you need food information, get with Daniel. But um, let's go. Let's get slide right back into this topic because you had mentioned something a second ago about AI, um, and you're right. The progression of AI and then helping others um, from the technical standpoint of dealing with difficult materials, utilizing AI to ask questions and get answers um, is changing everything, right? Like I know that Ken Ballin has that
Balin knows best.
Ballin knows best that is kind of AI centric, right? But I know that that's evolved quite a bit too, and it is going to keep getting smarter and smarter. And there's some changes I believe recently to that, but it doesn't really give you the hands-on experience, and maybe we can look at both sides of that. The the information superhighway, if you will, with AI assistance, and then the hands-on. I guess two different aspects of and how to approach that.
Right.
Um,
So just speaking about difficult material in general, I kind of want to start off with just talking about what the thing that they claim is, DIY friendly, and that's the click flooring, right? The LVTs, LVPs, everyone is doing them. They say that homeowners can do them, and I'll be honest, it's one of those things where I just I don't excel at.
um, I think it's because it takes a level of patience, but the it is crazy, right? Because you're patient other things, but that's a tile format, a plank format. It should be going fast, right? Like maybe that's the mindset. It makes it more difficult, but DIYers are probably going a little bit slower. They're afraid of messing up. I will say that it is very particular, especially some of the SPCs and the locking mechanisms. And
Well, it's just knowing that sometimes you're not going to get that to go in there, and you got to cut that locking mechanism off and just glue some stuff in.
yeah,
I think that was where I kind of made that turn, and it's like, all right, I'm just going to cut this off and glue it because I'll be fighting this forever.
you know what? The first time that I tried to show Jeremy that trick, I ended up cutting my knuckle off and with a utility knife. But I didn't flinch. I cut it off. I let it fall wherever it went. Put a rag around my finger and then kept showing him why he was freaking out. And then he returned it back to me when he found it later on. But yeah, there's just There's a fine line between DIY and having trouble shooting abilities and understanding product to where you know what you can and cannot do as far as manipulating the material or a product and how to get it into place the right way so it's seated. That's a really good example of not what is not a standard trick for DIY. I guess I've never really seen a video on that either. It's just one of those things that someone had mentioned, and you like, hey, you know what? This is what they said to do,
Well,
and
I
then you
mean, I
try it.
still you still go on some of the flooring pages on Facebook, and they're still talking about how far back do I have to remove this in order to do a repair, right? And it's like just cut it out. And those are things that you don't know unless you do it all the time.
Right? Is one plank. If that's all you need to replace, you can do that.
Right, and that's I'm just the main reason I wanted to bring that up was because sometimes it's not even it's the easy material that can still be difficult, right? Because I mean, even with carpet, we worked with carpet that's super inexpensive, that is ridiculously hard to seam up, and you can't run a row to save your life. But then you get on some of this super um expensive carpet, the stuff that Jorge be working with on a daily basis, right? And that is meant to use your knife. You got to cut it from the back. There is no row cutting, right? It's one of those difficult materials to work with, right? But it's still easier to follow a row than the inexpensive stuff.
Yes, you're right. I think early on we found that the more cost effective the material, more cost efficient the material, the harder it is to work with. In most cases, not all. The higher grade material that costs more money, they put a little more love into that one. Makes it easier to work with, that's for sure.
Kendall says a lot of the LVP installers are having a problem with manufacturer tolerances from what he's heard. And I've sat through a seminar about the tolerances that manufacturers have, and it is sometimes a little bit ridiculous. Like I can't you'd be surprised how much it's able to shrink and grow and still be within their guidelines, but it is. And I mean, that's why you know you have to read those instructions, because one manufacturer, even though they market it as the same exact material, right? It's not always apples to apples. And then one manufacturer will be like a quarter inch perimeter gap, the other one will be a half inch. So you just have to be aware that it's even though it's the same type of material, it's not all constructed of the same material,
Yeah, it
the
is.
same raw materials.
Yeah, plus or minus some raw materials changes the limitations and what's acceptable. And to go back to what Kendall said about the tolerances, is a lot of the tolerances, to be honest, are very hard to meet if you're looking at an overall project. And a lot of the tolerances, some of the installers don't know them until something's gone wrong. So I advise you to pick up a book or open up your phone and do a little bit of reading, and a simple Google search will actually bring you pretty close to the right place. Um, Otherwise,
Or
manufacturer
going
specs.
right to the manufacturer's website and seeing what they have in there, right? And that's the thing, is you always want to do that, because we've talked before about how the website has one set of instructions, the bucket or the paper has another set, and it's like, which ones do you follow? And you want to kind of think that the ones on the website are static, right? So they can be updated on the fly, and those are the right ones. But if you're ever in question, there's technical numbers to call to help you out with that.
So offhand, Diego, do you can you think about any products that, like, through your career that you've had issues working with and you've needed some help or some guidance at some point where you're
Yeah,
just like, I can't figure it out, and just
Well, I want to get to Kendall's question real quick about tolerances of floor leveling, and then we'll talk about the materials that I've had issues with. Um, so, as far as floor leveling, we call it, we want to get it flat, right? Not level, because
Yep.
sometimes level is out of the question.
It's
And
misleading actually to some people who are very literal.
right, and when you're looking at those tolerances, it's that's why they have, you know, the 3/16 of an inch and 10 foot, right? Because it gives you that window in order to bridge, and you have to be within those, or else you're liable. And are is it a little ridiculous sometimes? Yeah. Can you get away with a little bit more? Probably, but it's all in what you're trying to, your risk factor.
Yeah, you don't want to be at that threshold of tolerance right at the 10 feet. You kind of want to spread it out a little bit the best you can, knock down some high spots, alleviate some of those peaks, fill in some of the valleys, depending on
Right.
what substrate you're working with. You got to bring it as close as possible.
So he's saying that the tolerances are so small that it seems like the manufacturer is just setting us up to fail, and the customer is going to start griping about something.
Well, they have the same information that we have, right? So depending on what's going on, and say there is a failure, and somebody does make a phone call and calls an inspector, whether it's the client or the manufacturer or the installer, um, I don't think that information is typically shared between everybody all at once. It is only it, if you're the one who called and you're paying for it, you're privileged with that information. You're not required to share any of it. Um, so if the homeowner wants to figure it out and find out why it's failing as well, they can hire their own, or same thing with the installer to protect yourself. But make sure you did everything right. Make
And
sure you did
it's,
everything right.
I mean, the tolerance are there for a reason. And when we're talking about the the click lock floors in general, it's because they're there because, you know, the thinner you get, the less of a locking mechanism you got to connect together. You know, Andy Williams talks about this all the time, and it's like when you're have that 5 millimeter SPC that you're working with, and I mean, you're talking in that locking mechanism. What is it? Maybe a millimeter that is actually the only body that you're connecting to.
Yeah, I mean, let's just call that portion. I don't know if you want to even call that one a locking mechanism because it's more of a setting in there, dropping in to make sure it's seated, right? But there's different types. But yeah, if we're looking at like the 4.5 or 5 millimeter SPC, then that stuff is very particular. And I will say that even if you do have really good floor flatness, that
Right.
you make sure you're lined up good. Like,
Brian makes a good point here, you know, that, and we're banking on it being on concrete. A lot of it over here in Michigan, Brian, I don't know where you're located, but we're doing it on wood, right? We got basements over here, but commercially, what that's the fight that we have is the separation between Division 3 and Division 9. It's everything could be within their tolerances, but once that concrete starts moving, it's going to do whatever it wants.
yeah, it's like a moisture test, right? You know, at the time of install, we were within our tolerance.
Right.
What
And
it
I know
does after that,
they have a window where they go in there and measure everything, and everything looks great, but I mean, I have been on projects where you can you can feel the height difference just walking around. And
mm,
that's where I say, you know, when you're walking somewhere and you trip, it's sometimes it's just a hump in the floor and you don't realize it, right? But you're looking at probably a half inch sometimes. And I have seen some concrete companies go in there and grind for an entire week straight because there are some tolerances, and you just know that, yeah, this was not as good as you said it was.
working conditions are really really brutal on the overall finish of the concrete too. You know, you can't if you fart on one side of the concrete, it might be a little bit warmer, cause some curling. I don't know. It's very particular. I'm not a concrete guy, so I can only speculate. Um,
Our nephew
Flatness,
Zeke is watching on Instagram right now. He says he loves us.
zig zig, Big Poppy. That's what we call him.
But to get back to your question about the what, I think it's more than just one material because throughout my career I've hated multiple materials, and the one that I hated the most I actually ended up being the best at for I don't know how that happened, but I did. I hated sheet vinyl to begin with, and there are plenty of guys that will be right there, on my side, or like, yeah, we hate it, we hate it. You don't get away with anything,
No,
right?
no,
And
it's hard sometimes.
yeah, and so that's where I started out hating that, right? And then um I started getting better at that. And then that's the thing. The more you work with something and the more training you do on something, even if it's training yourself, right, practicing, the easier it gets. And then it's not one of those difficult materials. And now I started getting better at that, and broadloom carpet was my enemy.
You know what? I think the first time you work with any specific piece that you're not comfortable with is uh, classified as difficult. And you know what? You started with saying, I'm going to start with the carpet. Um, I would say that getting into like the larger open areas of pattern match broadloom, that was difficult because zero zero formal training at the time, and you know when and everything that I learned, I tried to apply. But like when we worked for other companies and going and helping other crews out, you know, you respect the crew leader and you do things as they're instructing, and you try to work it out and try to help out. But when you don't see eye to eye in the technique or the direction on what you're trying to do, it makes life a lot harder when you put yourself in a scenario where it's a first time scenario in a large project that it's, hey, guess what? It's in the adhesive. We don't have very much time before it lives there. So I would say, and I'm talking like some 1 inch pattern match with tufted rows where there is no hiding. You're gonna see a squiggle. You're gonna see
Any dip in the
a
floor is going to
zipper.
look like it goes off.
Yep. You know you can see the angles and you know the length, but not only that, you have other directions. You can see all these different angles, but a wide open room, every dip at the column and the footing, you know, and trying to get the lines perfect. I mean, there's a lot that was involved, but I will say that you know when Mr. Dave Barons helped out a lot when we worked at Superior, going through a lot of those, and him willing to take the time to explain his thought process through some of it really helped turn it into my own. Um, and I would say without that type of leadership right there, where he understands the material, and he was CFI back then, right? So he had already been through the training and certification, and to not understand the importance of the of being educated back then versus having him show me, which he was the owner of the flooring company we worked for at the time. Um, I just like learning from another installer hands on, and it was great to have someone with his knowledge kind of in the back pocket, so to speak, because he was available there whenever you had a technical question. And just like me, you call me and say, "Hey, I need some help on this job." I love getting out of the office and getting out there. Body can't really do what I used to do, but the brain
The
still
brain
works.
still works, yeah.
Brain
Like I can
still
explain,
works.
we can explain how to do everything. It's just, and we can do it, right? Maybe for like a couple days, but my
Broken
body
body's a
feels it.
broken body.
Yeah. Um, just touching back real quick because Kendall did comment. he doesn't understand how commercial guys protect ourselves, because that's why he sticks to carpet. And even though he knows some of this other stuff pays better, but I mean, that's where your comfort zone is, that's where you live. But then you also have to realize where growth starts, and that's out of your comfort zone, right? So that's the take I have on it, is once you start looking at, okay, well, let me branch out and do these things that we don't necessarily always do. That's when you start learning, right? And that's where the research comes in on, trying to make sure that you have yourself covered, or contacting one of us to go through that. I
Y-
mean, we're working with one of the bigger companies in the area right now, on a project, and that's all because they don't have that the insight that we do on resilient. So there's times where that is necessary.
Yeah, and just to add to that too, Kendall, you said how do we protect ourselves, right? Well, as a matter of fact, the same way that you're trying to protect yourself, because we just had a conversation before the podcast started, and and hopefully the schedule allows, but I'll meet you on a commercial project tomorrow. We're going to look at it and we'll talk about it, and that's the beginning of protecting yourself, is by understanding where you fall short and where someone else might excel, and being vulnerable and making that phone call and saying, hey, how do I do this? What do I look at? Right? That's the first step in protecting yourself, because now you are openly asking for information for you to lock in that memory bank. The only difference is for us, we have a little bit of paperwork and a paper trail that we have to create, and documentation that we have learned over the years that we have to make sure that we have um, readily available at all times. That's how we protect ourselves. And by making sure that we openly present potential failures uh, to the right people and have literature backing it up. I mean, there's a lot to it. It seems like there's a lot to it, but it becomes pretty standard the more you practice it. And I think text message and emails, anything, any documentation, pictures, notes,
Videos.
videos, yeah, like all of that stuff is all very important. And that's why we document every project. We have notes for every project. Um, are we missing some notes on some projects? We might be. We might not have everything.
Accurate.
Yeah,
Accurate documentation is key.
and having the right documentation is paramount. Like if you walk into a place and you have experience and you've seen certain failures, or you kind of see the writing on the wall, and the project is hurry, rush, rush, rush. Like we need this done by this date. You don't have a choice. That's going to raise a red flag, and you're going to make sure that you are bringing all the right paperwork and all the right questions to the table. And when I say questions, they might be formatted in a manner that they give you the answer versus you giving them your answer. Um, I don't want to sound like that's like a devious way to go about it, but what if it fails because we're hurrying up? What if this product isn't backed by the manufacturer because you're asking me to do this? What happens then? Like,
And sometimes, I mean, I've been on the other side of that too, where it's like I'm not even asking these questions. I'm just straight up being like, no, it's not happening.
that is that is that comes from practice though. That comes from already being there and knowing where it's gonna go.
Doyle says that company Cam is his go to for documentation. Um, we had floor detective um, David on here, David Zach, not long ago, and his software also has a photo feature.
I just
Go
seen Jorge's
Carrera.
comment.
Um, Go Carrera has that, and I'm sure that's going to be adapted over into the trade tab, right, where it's you're documenting everything. It's not a matter of should I take a picture. It's when I get to site, I'm taking pictures midway through the day, taking pictures at the end of the day. That way, you have timestamps on things that are happening. It'll save you. I know,
You,
like we know firsthand how important this is. We've been on it where we didn't document and we've gotten burned, and then we learn.
y-
So then we over document, and then people are like, why you keep on emailing me this stuff? It's like not happening again.
you don't have to respond to it. Just log this information. Um, and documentation doesn't always have to be because of a failure. It can be because something didn't go quite right on a project, and the owners something of the owners got damaged. And I'll bring one up. Is we did a medical building, and the owner collected I don't know what they call them, like mobiles, and we're complete with the project, and we have completion pictures, and he's like, hey, just letting you know, you guys broke this, and this is what it costs, and I did my best to be sympathetic, right? I don't know, so I went back through all the pictures, and upon our completion pictures, I noticed that it was still hanging and intact, and he he didn't want to believe that his employees, when moving things back, didn't tell him anything, but I didn't say it like that. I just said, look, here you go. This is our last picture of this area. We're complete. We're clean up, and look what's hanging there. Um, I, I I sympathized with them. I really did, but that picture's worth 1,000 words. Like, and some of them might have been cuss words, but it's okay.
Yeah,
It
Twilio
happens.
has Floor Detective too, and the tools are you have to make it a habit,
Yeah.
and it's even us and our employees. It's having to we talk about it all the time, and then things don't happen, and it's like halfway through the day, it's like update. Let me get an update. Things have to keep on coming through.
Yeah. And then yeah, that was to say, when I'm on a commercial inspection with glue oozing at the seams, you better hope you have documented the moisture testing properly if you end up in a lawsuit. And I, yeah, I mean, depending on the type of project, and if it goes that far through litigation and all that, yeah, you better hope that you have it there. And there's a lot of gray area when it comes to moisture testing, right?
Right, that's banking on it being moisture. It could be adhesive emulsification, because plasticizer migration, right? It could be a number of things, but it's not always just one thing. It
Right.
could be a combination of all those things at the same time.
And I will add to that too. And if you're an installer labor only, and you're kind of going into a project for another company, and don't be afraid to ask if they have moisture tests or to look at the results. Right. I think we we had a project fail due to moisture a few years ago, and it failed because of a team effort. It
It wasn't moisture, it was an adhesive issue.
was it an adhesive issue? Well, I was told it was a moisture issue, but I guess it could have been one of four things. But at the end of the day, we found out that the contractor was supposed to perform a moisture test, but they deferred that to the flooring company that was hired, which gave them literature back saying that they're not going to do it. They put it back on them, and there was a lot of that. So everybody kind of just said, "Wasn't my fault." But we went back and redid the install, and everything looks good.
Yeah, we did switch adhesives.
That's unfortunate, but it happens. And was that one of the times where we used one manufacturer for the material and then
And
a
then just
universal?
just like a universal adhesive, yep. So we went back in with the manufacturer recommended adhesive and have not had a callback.
And that's where transitioning from, I mean, it's been years now, but from solvent to water-based adhesives and the changes in science since that became a thing, and understanding the difference in backings and some of the recycled backings and what's compatible and what isn't. That is that is one of the difficulties with all materials, is making sure that your information is current. And you said that earlier, Daniel, and knowing the right people, or having the right phone numbers, and understanding it's okay to call somebody to make sure. Please don't feel dumb. Please, like, please don't feel dumb. Just call somebody. Make sure.
I know. I mean, I'm pretty sure you get questions all the time too. And it's not even a call. It's a lot of the times it's a Facebook message. Hey, got a question.
Yeah, yeah. And it's really hate to see anybody fail because they were too proud to make a 5 minute phone call. Um, it's not worth it. Just make that phone call. You know, well, and if you're close enough, it might turn into having tacos one day at a restaurant. We're
And
always looking for a reason to go have tacos. I'll be honest.
and that's the thing is with these difficult materials, right? You have those resources at your fingertips, literally, like boom, Facebook message, you're getting answers. Again, it's what you were saying earlier, it's not the same as a hands-on thing, but at least you have that information. A lot of the guys that are scared of doing sheet vinyl, it's typically only because the heat weld portion, right? But really, I'm more worried about them getting the seams right than I am about the heat weld portion.
Yeah, I think the heat weld portion is, like, I understand not being afraid to burn, right? Not working with it very often, but the steps and the process to get to the welding point is more difficult than the welding once you get going. Um, you can you can have a good weld on a bad seam, but if you have a bad seam underneath the weld, that's just one of those failure points, and that's one of the difficult things to. I don't want to say it's difficult to teach. It's not difficult to teach, but it's difficult to understand why if you're not willing to put in the time and ask the questions.
Doyle says he doesn't know why the installer would push back. And at this point, it wasn't because we were the installer, it was actually the flooring contractor who hired us, right? There's a lot of back and forth. So he says get certified to do the testing with an understanding there is a charge, or have a person in your contacts 100%. So, or get set up with a system where there's no ifs, ands, or buts, and that's where we have climate, right? Because as soon as we got that, I started just when they asked for moisture testing, I'm like, I'll do it. You want to know why? Because I can't manipulate the readings. The
Right,
readings are what they are.
and
So
not
I
only that,
can't,
it adds value.
yeah, and I can keep track of sites. I've been on, I've had sites where um, the temperature starts falling, and it's like, hey guys, what is going on? Oh yeah, yeah, we'll get that under control. But it's eyes on the project. You're getting alerts, so get yourself set up for success that way. And yeah, get certified for moisture testing. I've had people ask me about it, and is it an investment? Yeah, I think the class is, I don't know, pushing $1,000 or something. I couldn't even tell you.
It's like a
You have to
3 day
get,
class, right? The last time we did
yeah,
it.
you got to get certified every 4 years, 4 or 5 years. But it's been we put in quite a few moisture tests throughout those 4 or 5 years.
Yep, and it's not difficult to perform the test. It's just understanding how to do it. And it could be classified as let's say not dealing with difficult materials, right? Let's say difficult situations because it could be technical, it could be materials, but once you learn it and understand it and do, just say you do your first test, the second one is super easy, the third one you're like, oh man, this isn't really that bad, but then you start refining your documentation process, and then we found we use our measure program to kind of locate, allocate, and then climate came out, and that was just that one made it hard to not use because of the technology and what it offered. Um, Third party information is hard to discount when you have to sit at the same table with the contractors and the owners saying this is why we can't do it. Your literature states this. These are the readings we're getting. These are the recommendations. The manufacturer's literature states this. We're not aligned.
Doyle says the flooring company's got to do better. It's a part of the recipe of a very successful install. And I think that one of the issues that you run into when you're testing for your own stuff is if it does come back high and you sell them, it's like trying to upsell, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what a lot of people don't realize is that I don't want to do anything with the moisture. I want to just install. Like when it comes to this stuff, just I don't want these ratings to come back high. I'm not trying to add a bunch of money on because a lot of the money that goes into it is in the product.
Um, it's really heartbreaking when you go to what seems to be like a small, simple residential project, and then you find moisture issues, or when you're doing a very large project for a nonprofit who is on a strict budget, and you get into the removal and you find moisture issues. Like, we don't want to deal with that. Nobody does. Nobody want. It's just so much easier to go there, do the rip, get the prep done, do the install, and move on. Um, but unfortunately, they have a process for a reason, and you should do your best to honor that.
Right. And I think some of the harder materials too that we don't really work with like hands on a regular basis, but just hard tile in general, but the large format. It's like you're looking at like Paul was saying a couple weeks ago that he was dealing with some porcelain panels that were what did he say 3 foot by 10 foot or something like that.
Uh, it was a ridiculous size, but whenever somebody says something like those formats like that, like I would have to have like a Mission Impossible set up to where we're dropping the tiles and through like a robotic arm or something. I can't imagine the amount of stress it puts on someone or a company or what technology they need to utilize or equipment to make sure that they're, man, that's got to be such a flat floor. It's got to be such a flat substrate. Man, you got to be super confident, get everything good.
Right, and you're talking these this 3/16 and 10 foot, and some of these big panels are stricter tolerances than that.
Right, and like maybe vertical. I don't know, but maybe the vertical is easier than the floor, but still, then you're trusting a lot of other people to make sure that they're within your tolerance.
Well, just in the equipment itself that goes that you have to use, right? I mean, I think it's nice that I've seen these videos on Facebook that have the right tools, and you're like, oh, that's pretty sweet. But then you see these other videos where it's like they're rigging stuff up, and then um, sometimes it goes great, other times not. But at least they're documenting it so I can see what works and what doesn't.
Oh,
Doing residential. Are we doing roll on, vapor barrier, or poly? And I think, again, I'm going to refer to manufacturers' specifications because I've dealt with some manufacturers that require one and others that require the other.
yeah, I think going that route to start with that as a foundation is probably the best way. Obviously, if there is if you're walking the project and you see that there is a potential moisture issue, then you got to bring it up. You got to talk about it. And most of the time, the concrete will tell you a story. The walls will tell you a story, and you might get some information from the homeowner as well about this has backed up X amount of times in the past few years. Or if you're on a development and in the basement below grade, but you notice that there's a big hill and there's a runoff aiming towards that development, and you find out like, oh, what is outside when you dig outside? What are you digging into? Are you digging into sand, clay, dirt? Like all questions, and maybe I don't know, maybe it's not normal that I ask those questions, but I try to factor everything when walking a job. I do take a ridiculous amount of notes through a walkthrough. Always. Can't help it.
I think he was just referring to like with the click lock, what we were using as a vapor barrier, not necessarily if there's any moisture issues at the time, just in general.
And I was just sharing the information as far as what I try to factor in if you're looking at something beyond what manufacturer specs are. If you happen to find something or notice anything.
So um, manufacturers are saying that poly is now required under SPC, which is crazy because that can trap a lot of moisture. Um,
Yeah. And I'm assuming that's below grade on concrete. All right. Or are we talking above grade on concrete as well?
Kelly says better to be thorough, and that's 100%. That's why we always refer to the manufacturer's recommendations, because if we don't do it the way that they say it has to be done, then it's our fault.
Yep. If they tell you to stand on 1 foot, touch your nose, stick your arm out, and point south when you're installing east and west, and chant something, just follow it. Just do it. It's part of the instructions. There's got to be a reason. It must have been tested that way.
Over a concrete substrate, most don't specify. You're right. Some of them, I forget who I was talking to, but they were talking about a bunch of plank that was failing um, from someone else in town, and it was because the manufacturer did not specify to use any vapor retarder at all. Things started failing. Then they're like, "Oh, you didn't use a vapor retarder," but nothing was in documentation saying that they had to use it.
So I sent some information to a friend of mine a couple weeks ago, and first off, for DIYers, some of the actual manufacturer specifications are extremely difficult to find when you're purchasing from a big box store. Um, right? Like some of them are very hard to find. So you have to kind of cross-reference the material and find out who the actual manufacturer is if it's a white box or a private label. But we did find it, and the instructions were a little contradicting. It said that it does not need it below grade over concrete, but then there was another line um, in the installation instructions versus the warranty information. I don't recall which one it was in, but one said you don't need it. The other one said you must install over concrete below grade. So, and that was in the same document. So,
Copy and paste.
yeah, yeah. Where we at, Mister? What's Kendall saying here?
Oh, that wool job that you guys did. Um,
Oh yeah, You know what? That's like I know I talked about that a little bit ago with you today too. Is one of those things where you say yes, I've worked with it, and then as soon as he seen the product, he didn't say it there on site, but we were leaving, and he was like, "Man, I'm gonna need some help with that one." He's like, I it's been a while since I've done anything like that, but I'm not familiar with the instructions, right? And it was just not being comfortable, and I think that's when Kendall found out that I do carpet, not just resilient. It's like yeah, I'll plan on coming out and helping you. He was like, you? Like, how are you gonna help me? I'm like, well, because I'm just gonna come and help you. Like, that's what I do. And it was actually nice to get out and work with him and see how somebody else works. But he got the hang of it right away. Like, it was a matter of walking through it and explaining it versus explaining it in a manner in which he understood, and both made sure we understood each other, instead of reading a document. And then once he was like, I could see it
It's
locked in. Boom, didn't he need me anymore?
right. Doyle says below or on grade, it's going to condensate underneath regardless, and 100% at some point, especially up here in Michigan, where you're going to have that. It's going to be super cold. Like, what is it outside right now? 14 degrees. Yesterday it was like 9 or something like that. And then in that basement, it's going to want to do something.
Yeah,
He,
and
Kendall
materials
said he
what
would have
region
been lost
specific?
without you.
Yeah, right. You had it under control pretty quick.
But that's the thing with directions too, right? Because you can interpret it differently too. And that's why it's not a bad idea to have multiple eyes on something so that way nothing gets lost in translation. Well, I think it says this. No, I'm pretty sure it's over here. Hold on. I don't envy your weather.
Man, or like
I don't want to move to Texas, but I want to move to somewhere warm.
I will say, Jorge, you know, I don't want to like the weather here, but my very first time ever going to Texas, I went down there to play in a very large softball tournament. A few hundred teams, and I've never been burned as bad as I was when I went to Texas. I went down there, took my shirt off, hung out in the sun for like 3 hours. Dude, I peeled 3 times. So I don't envy your weather at all either.
He says, Jorge says it's the perfect place. I don't know, man. I'm more partial to Mexico, but also I got super burnt there the last time too. So
Sensitive skin.
he said
Do you
it's the
get?
perfect place for floors, not just the perfect
Oh
place.
yeah. What about you guys? I know we're running close on time, but do you guys, anybody out there, have a material that put them in a position to either call in some help or throw their hands up in the
I
air and walk away?
I will tell you what, man. Going through the NFIC certification, I realized that my fingers are not meant for sewing.
Um, yes, that that does take some toughening up.
Just doing that, what was it, 2 foot seam and then the cross seam. Man, my fingers were burning. Then you got the professionals over there bringing their stuff. They got
Yeah,
the palm pad and they're doing this. I'm like, man,
that's called
y'all couldn't give me a
experience.
heads up.
Yeah, that's called experience. Like,
Yeah, that's the same way when we tell people, we roll up to a job site with $20,000 in a toolbox just for vinyl, just for heat welding,
yeah, there's a tool for everything. It's about making life easier. That's what they're made for.
right? And I think really the overall thing when we're talking about working with materials that are harder is that it becomes easy with experience. Once you start getting experience in anything, I mean, you were a novice at some point, right? I wasn't, like I said, I hated sheet vinyl. There was a turning point. Don't know when it was. I just ended up it's just one of those things that just starts clicking. And then once you have an understanding of it, it's when it's like, all right, this isn't as challenging. Going to Forbo, right? And just being shown the tricks that they do with do it like this, don't do it like that. Pre-roll the material the other way, give it a those crunches, you're pre-stretching things, you're pre-shrinking things. It's
Hmm.
knowing what you're working with and going through this training is really the biggest ticket. And that's where I think trade tap is going to shine, because you're not going to have to go and searching for all of these trainings anymore. They're going to be right on your phone, right in the app. Just go on there, see what's available, see. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, he said it was going to kind of be catered to you, because you're going to get your VTI, and then it's going to say, hey, if you want to move up, this is kind of where you should be going.
It helps you create a path for yourself too. And hey, some people are on multiple paths, and that's okay.
So I'm kind of excited to see what the future that holds. But that I think that's the overarching thing. It's, man, there is a lot of difficult materials, and once, I mean, just Pruitt flooring, right? I was talking to Dwayne the other day about a project, and he was like, how long would it take? I said, honestly, with this many guys, it'll probably take, you know, only this long. And he was like, no way. I said, yeah. And I mean, even one of the projects we did over here, downtown Grand Rapids, they were like, this stuff has to get done. And I was like, dude, empty the area. I'll have it done in 2 or 3 days. And we did with three people. It was done. It doesn't take long once you have a system, but it's the hard part is getting that experience to get that system put in place.
Yep. And that's where getting started, like the hardest part, right? Like a game plan all you want. I promise you that if you sit there and there's a proper amount of time to game plan. But if you're game planning based off of all of the things that could go wrong, man, you just got to get started and find out how many things are going to go right once you get started. It's just sometimes you got to dive in and then trust the process.
Right. I'm going to put this link in the comments. What is Trade Tap? So I know a lot of guys are watching on their phone probably, so they can't scan the QR code. So I'm going to put it in the chat.
They can
But
screenshot it and then bring it up later. Um,
but Trade Tap is what Go Carrera is rebranding to. So it's not only are they switching the name, but they're also switching basically everything from the ground up. They're taking what they've learned so far, revamping it, and then giving a new formula, right? A new
there
formula
you go.
for how they tell you exactly where you're at, and then the path that you should go to get more training. Because we always say that there's a labor shortage, but I always chime in with, I don't think it's a labor shortage, it's a qualified labor shortage. Because if a lot of these guys would actually get some training and put themselves out there to be better, we'd be in a lot better place. I mean,
Well, and essentially what it does is it gives you, I don't want to say ranking or grading, right? But there's a certain level of installer that you need for specific materials. And as you get to the more difficult installations and techniques, you're going to need a higher level installer. And what this does is this helps cater to some of that. It brings awareness to a skill set that an individual or a company might have. So that way you are doing your best to present the end user or the client the higher chances of long term success for the installation, and creating that long term value is very important for retaining repeat customers, clients, and maybe building a name for yourself with some higher end builders. You know, it it sets you apart as an individual, as an installer, and a skill set, and it helps create the start of setting yourself apart through the offerings and the information that is in there as well. This
Right.
third party verified, I believe. Um,
So Jorge says that experience is key, going through the motions, failing, then succeeding, finding the way, then just slamming it down. And that's why we're called the Huddle. We reference everything to being in sports because that's what we do. And it's you learn more from your losses than you do your wins, right? Because when you're winning, everything is great, but when you lose, it's like, what do I need to do in order to not feel like this again?
yeah. Why did I win? Because I did all of this. I prepped for all of this. Why did I lose? Because I didn't prep properly. Right? I didn't cross my T's and dot my I's.
I didn't scrape the adhesive. I didn't Google or ask Chat GPT how I should be um, troweling my mortar on, right?
I didn't call Hardhead and ask him for pointers.
But we are at time right now, and we are less than a week away from being in Las Vegas. So if you are not signed up, make sure you get signed up. I don't know if there, I'm be honest with you, I don't know if there's any coupon codes anymore that are active. I have been getting some emails from some of the vendors that are going to be there with their coupon codes. So pay attention to your email to see what's going on with that. But we'd love to see you. We'd love to hang out with you after the events on the show floor. But the big thing is getting out there and networking and seeing what it's all about.
Yeah, create an itinerary. And don't forget to come see the Huddle guys at Ties. Let's go. Less than a week away.
Less than a week away, and another shout out to Divergent Adhesives. Thanks again for sponsoring this episode,
Man, I wish we
and
could
we
play his little skit. I wish we could play his little thing as an exit.
maybe next time we will see you guys in Vegas.
Thank you, everyone.